Can you find better stuff in storage units in the country, in the city, in the suburbs, in a rough neighborhood in the city, in the hood, whatever you want to call it? Where are you going to find the better stuff when it comes to buying storage units? A lot of people, I've heard that question, where do you get the best stuff? Do you go to a rich neighborhood? Do you go to a poor neighborhood? They're always looking for that, that clue, that hint, that tip that's going to lead them to, finding treasure. And, now that they're all online, I mean, you can kind of see, beforehand, and a lot of times you don't even know where these units are. You just kind of bid on stuff, and, you don't really know till you get there sometimes if you haven't been there before, whether it's a bad neighborhood or not. Versus in person, once you got there, you kind of looked around the neighborhood and you knew that, it was a bad neighborhood or it was a poor neighborhood. You just, you could tell there wasn't a whole lot of money in this area. But one thing that buying units for years and years and years, in person most of the time until here recently, all over Atlanta, downtown Atlanta, in the roughest of neighborhoods to super high-end neighborhoods, Midtown, Buckhead, in that area, if you're familiar with Atlanta, the really nice areas. All of the suburbs of Atlanta, every single side of Atlanta, I've bought units on, tons of them, to places way, way out in the country, nowhere near Atlanta or nowhere near any big city at all. And, small towns that are out there away from the city. I've bought them everywhere. I've bought many, many units in every single area to kind of, see what the trends are, see what you can find in these places. And, the simple answer is you can find good stuff anywhere. A good unit can pop up anywhere. You never know. And sometimes even when you're looking at the unit, you don't really know what you're going to find until you get in there. But like always, there are trends. There are things that, that you see, patterns that you see based off of where you're buying from, and all that kind of stuff. So we're going to start off like buying units in the country. Buying them out in the middle of nowhere, buying them in the boonies, or even small towns. My experience, bought lots of units out there. Like I said, you can find good stuff anywhere. But overall, you're going to find a few antique units, with older stuff. But you're going to find a lot of junk units when you get out, out in the middle of nowhere. The reason for that, my theory on why, and based off, from experience and what I saw in there, is that most people that have nice stuff when they're out in the country, they're not people that move around a lot. They've lived there forever, and they have plenty of space. They have garages, they have basements, they have sheds, they have barns, they have plenty of room to store their stuff at home and not need to bring it to a storage unit. Plus, they're not really moving around a lot. They've kind of lived out there their whole life, and there's no reason, like when you're in the city when people are moving around and changing jobs. But when you get out there's not a lot of reason for most people to move around and therefore put their stuff in storage. The units you do tend to find that are in storage more often than not, than when you get out in these places, are the young couple that's just starting out, doesn't have a lot of money, hasn't accumulated a lot of stuff, hasn't inherited anything, and they have young kids. What do young kids do? They tear stuff up, they get stuff dirty, and they zap your money even more. So that's the kind of use you tend to find, that young couple that just doesn't really have a whole lot of money. So overall, doesn't tend to have a lot of nice stuff. Definitely not going to have any real nice furniture, expensive pieces. And that's just the overall trend that I've seen in, buying a lot of units out in small towns or out in the country. So overall, I've bought a few good ones, a few that had antiques and stuff, but overall it's not my favorite place to buy. Even though I have gotten some cheap units out there before, but the only reason they turn out really good normally is because I didn't pay a whole lot for them. Then you go to the suburbs. Suburbs, I probably bought more units there than anywhere else because that's kind of where I'm located, and that's where a lot of, large amount of units come up, because suburbs go all the way around Atlanta, tons and tons of different neighborhoods. But overall, it's a big mix when it comes to the suburbs. Suburbs, you can get really good, you can get really bad, you can get antiques, you can get newer stuff, because you kind of have a mix of a lot of different people. But overall, you get a lot of household units, like whole house units, that have adult stuff, moms and dad stuff, and then you'll have kids stuff, all mixed together, a whole house. You know, the furniture, the washer, the dryer, the living room set, and personal stuff, decor, all that stuff. If you have a store, somebody like me, a lot of those units can turn out really good, especially the bigger units that you find a lot of, the 10 by 20s and bigger, that is somebody's whole house because they were moving, moving around or building a house or whatever the case is, and something happened. And but that's a lot of the units you get in the suburbs, kind of your traditional family units, which can be good. And the good thing about them, you can get a good mix of stuff from adults items, the grown-ups items, to the kids items, to household stuff, and then you'll throw in a few collectible type items, whatever the people are into. Then you go to the inner city units, but the rough neighborhoods. In the inner city, and I've bought them in some very, very rough neighborhoods in Atlanta. You tend to there's a lot of rough units, a lot of garbage units, but there's also, you can get some really good, in my experience, units with really nice shoes, really nice clothes. It's a funny thing because they'll have complete junk furniture, but it's a culture thing where people, they want to have nice shoes. You'll have lots of, Jordans and really nice clothes, and I've seen that many, many times there. I've gotten really good units like that. Another thing too, also in the inner city, where a neighborhood that's kind of going downhill and it's a rough neighborhood, look out for the older people's unit, the senior citizens units in those areas, because some of those neighborhoods, decades ago when these people moved in, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 years ago, the neighborhood might have been completely different. So their stuff, is nice. They hung on for all those years. They didn't move because the house was paid for and they got old, and that's just where they were from. Even though the neighborhood was bad around them, they still live there, and you might find some good antique stuff, some estate type stuff, jewelry. I've gotten lots of gold jewelry in older people's units in bad neighborhoods. And I've gotten some units that just completely didn't match the neighborhood at all from older people. So that's one thing to look for. And then you have the inner city unit that is in a better neighborhood. Or even in the really good neighborhoods, in the really fancy neighborhoods, the really eclectic, funky neighborhoods. Like here in Atlanta, you've got Midtown going up to Buckhead in that area, and there's a lot of neighborhoods kind of in between, around that area and in between, and you can get some real artsy kind of neighborhoods and trendy neighborhoods, and you can get some really good stuff. Once again, you can get bad stuff, you can get the good stuff. That applies to anywhere. But overall, when you get into these inner city neighborhoods, the nicer areas, you get a lot of designer clothes, designer shoes, designer furniture, designer everything. I'm talking about names, because if they're going and shopping at, Neiman Marcus and Saks Fifth Avenue and all those kind of places the ones that are still in business, they'll get some weird Italian brands and stuff that you've never even heard of. But when you go and look them up, you can just tell it's expensive. So when you go and look it up, you're like, whoa, never heard of this thing, but this thing costs an arm and a leg. And it can be the weirdest little thing. It could be a toaster or something normal like that, but it's this crazy brand that they bought, and prices will blow you away sometimes on that stuff. You can get some super modern, sleek furniture. That's what you tend to find in Atlanta, in the Midtown area. Nice electronics, up to date, because it's a more sometimes a younger crowd, a more tech savvy crowd, and that kind of thing. So modern, up to date TVs and computers, MacBooks and that kind of stuff is what I've seen finding a lot of in the Atlanta area. And also, just kind of some really strange, eclectic, like artsy units. People that, whether they were artists or not, I'm not really sure, but they were artsy people. Funky statues, and really cool artwork, just different stuff. Like I said, when you're in the suburbs, a lot of regular stuff, the typical, either Walmart stuff or stuff that you would find like Kirkland's and Hobby Lobby and that kind of stuff. But when you get in the city, you find a lot of one-off, very unique stuff that, that's either one of a kind that they bought like at a gallery, or stuff that they've bought at, super trendy boutique type stores. Or even a lot of times you find more stuff from other countries because they've traveled and they pick up stuff as they're traveling. And so just overall, more likely to find higher end stuff. Even the person, I've gotten units, in Atlanta, in a nice neighborhood, the people didn't make any money at all. I mean, I could see they had their pay stubs and their tax forms and everything in there. They were working a basic fast food job, but they were trying to keep up with the Joneses, the people around them and the neighborhood around them. So they'll have a few designer, really expensive items where you're looking at it and you're like, this item is way too expensive to be buying on that wage. And that's probably why they lost their stuff. But you tend to find that in that area. They're trying to keep up with the Joneses. And then the Joneses are, they've got a lot of really nice stuff. And every now and then the Joneses, their stuff pops up. And then you get a lot of people that are trying to keep up with them, that stuff is popping up, in units. And you just never know what you're going to find. Celebrities units, a lot of celebrities units across Atlanta. But the weird thing is, even in the worst neighborhoods, I've seen celebrity units pop up here in Atlanta and get sold. Atlanta, some cities might be a little bit different, but Atlanta has a wide array and mix of people. That's for sure. And you can be on this street right here and be really rough, and people are standing all around your car, and you want to lock your doors, and then you drive to the next street over, it seems like, and you see like loft apartments and people eating out on patios at restaurants and people jogging down jogging on the sidewalk, and it's like, wait a minute, the next street over was like, you're locking your doors. This street over here, people are just out, enjoying their day or whatever, like nothing. So that's kind of I know a lot of cities are like that, where it's very, huge mix, and Atlanta, is definitely like that. And the storage facilities and the auctions can be really, crazy. You never know what you're going to find. But there's definitely trends based off of the neighborhood that it's in, and its surroundings. So like I said, for me, country units, not the best. Suburban units can be very good, especially if you have a store and you want to sell, everyday household items. And then when it comes to the inner city units, you can get some killer stuff. Some really funky stuff, some high-end stuff, good eBay stuff, tends to, in my experience, pop up at those inner city units. But anything can pop up anywhere, so you got to be ready to just, buy based off of what you're seeing and how much stuff there is and the price you're getting at, and not put a huge amount of stock in what neighborhood it is, because people can, sometimes they're looking for a certain size unit and they can't find it, and they end up a few neighborhoods away storing their stuff. So it's something to look at, but it's not the end all be all as far as what neighborhood it is, but definitely something that you want to, if you're going to take a gamble on a unit, you're better off taking a gamble in a neighborhood that it's well known for having, people that are spending more money on their stuff. If you're going to gamble on a unit where, I'm just talking about like a box unit, you can't really tell a whole lot, and it's in a really rough neighborhood, probably not the best idea. Better to gamble on a unit that's surroundings are better, but keep your eyes closed. When you can see some stuff and it turns into not really a gamble, you're seeing good stuff, don't sit there and think, oh, it's in a bad neighborhood. It's like, if you're seeing the good stuff, then bid on it. Because some people might be scared away, you might get a better deal. So, just buy where, you can see that you're going to make money. And as far as gambling, maybe tend to, gamble more on areas or neighborhoods that, you trust more. But once again, a good unit can pop up anywhere. I've bought them everywhere, and I've had good and bad experiences in every type of neighborhood. But that's it for this video. If you like videos like this, or us actually loading storage units, us buying pallets, us talking about our thrift store and auction, then hit the like button for this video. Give us the thumbs up. If you didn't like it, give us the thumbs down. If you got a comment or a question, let me know. A question about the storage auction business, let me know down below. And as always, if you want to see more videos like this and other things relating to the resale business, then hit the subscribe button. You'll have a good one.